Today on the Digital Investor Podcast, we are speaking to the CEO of Empire Flippers, Andy Allaway, all the way from the UK. Now, Empire Flippers, a lot of us in our community already know and love Empire Flippers for many, many years. But if you're new to this space, Empire Flippers are really well known. Their specialty is twofold, actually. It is curated deals, which we will talk about in this interview with Andy. We'll find out the details of how they curate these deals, how they vet the listings that they get. So very high quality listings on Empire Flippers, but also their specialty is e-commerce, which, as a lot of us know, we don't really teach here at eBusiness Institute. But today we're going to hear off Andy why e-commerce is still very, very popular out there. Also, we're going to hear off Andy some market updates, where are the opportunities in the marketplace, and how Empire Flipper works. So if you're into buying and selling websites, you definitely want to listen to Andy, get the inside on from the top, from the CEO himself, of what's happening out there on one of the world's biggest website brokerage firms. So Andy, did I describe Empire Flippers correctly there? Are you a brokerage firm or are you a marketplace? Where does Empire Flippers sit?
Pretty solid. Yeah. Great to be here. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, so, the way I view our industry is on the one end, you have the like true marketplace plays, which is like lots of tech, kind of, low service DIY, if you like. And then on the other end, you have like the more traditional brokers, which is probably lower tech, but higher touch. And we sit somewhere in the middle. Like, I think we've got industry leading platform. We've got a pretty big engineering team, but then we like layer the people on top of that as well, like you say, to try and make it a bit more of a curated handheld experience.
Yeah. So for our, like I was saying, for our community who are, I mean, it's a mixture. I guess I'm coming from the foot of, because we're looking at buying at the moment, right? So I'm thinking of, as a buyer, but also for sellers, Empire Flippers has traditionally been known as, the place for high quality vetted deals, which means your team, what are they doing to vet those deals? Like they're doing, are we allowed to say pre-due diligence? It's not strictly due diligence, is it?
Right. So like wherever you buy an online business from, kind of the buyer is responsible for due diligence. But what we try and do is make sure that our listings have a base level of checking, and the buyers don't have to worry about the basics. So our vetting team, really they're kind of worried about two main things in the vetting process. One is they're making sure that like every number that we put on our listing page has been verified by us. And most of that these days is done via APIs into Amazon, Shopify, or different display ad platforms, that kind of thing. And then they're also kind of just like looking into the seller as well. We do some checks to see if they have other kinds of sites and stuff like that, anything that they kind of might not be telling us about. And so, yeah, it's just we're trying to make sure that everything we put on the listing page is accurate, and then buyers can worry about the due diligence, which is kind of like, okay, is this the right business for me?
Okay, cool. And what percentage of, like, how many businesses are you seeing? How many do you typically list, and who do you allow onto your platform?
So we get somewhere in the region of like 150 submissions a week, something like that.
Wow.
Maybe slightly more. But we only list about 5% of those.
Okay.
And we have like a cascading bunch of checks. So like the first thing someone has to do when they submit a business is like verify their ID. If they don't do that, we kind of like don't even look at it any further. And then, it's the ones we list is a combination of like ones that pass our vetting checks, but also ones that like we think are a good fit for us and we can sell, and they're at the right price and stuff as well. So like we're only interested in listing stuff that we think we can do a good job for sellers and buyers.
And like always, Andy, I've been looking through all your listings. Your listings tend to be in a certain price range. Has that changed over the years, or are you still well known for? And can you explain what's your sweet spot for listing all the listings that you guys have?
Yeah, sure. So it's remained reasonably consistent for the last few years. The vast majority of listings you'll see on our marketplace will be from the 100K list price up into the kind of probably like mid seven figure range. We have a few a bit below that. We occasionally have some eight figure ones, but that's kind of like our sweet spot. And we have slightly different kind of touch levels and how we approach that. We don't try and sell a $5 million deal in the exact same way that we do an $80,000 deal. But yeah, that's roughly where most of our deals sit.
So in that 100,000, like for our listeners, like 100,000 up to a couple of mil is
Yeah,
your sweet spot. And I can
yeah,
remember
that's right.
Andy years ago, speaking to Liz and I, speaking to Justin, and the sweets, back then it was like 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
was saying they would sell by the next week if they listed that smaller business. And back then you guys were selling much bigger sites as well. But now essentially you don't even do much under 100 grand then.
Yeah, so I think like a few years ago we bumped our minimum requirement to $2,000 a month because
Okay.
again we put, when you add in our like vetting, sales, migration resource, for a long time we were like we're probably not making any money on deals much below that. And but yeah, back in I remember when I joined Empire Flippers, which was 2017, at that time we had this like real vivid concept of what we would call the wire race, right? Where we actually had to write blog posts about, hey, if we have 3 or 4 people sending money for this business at the same time, this is the rule. Like basically, first wire hits, and yeah, I mean, we would sell things within hours of putting them up sometimes.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and not watching it, I should say, like if you're listening, Justin, when I refer to Justin, Justin is the one of the original founders of Empire Flippers and used to speak at a lot of our events. And Andy, I can remember him saying that the wire race, like people sending in money and the sites would sell, especially on those smaller ones. I bet you wish those days were back. Although, like you said, I think he mentioned then, okay, it's easy to wish those days were back again. Not for us poor buyers. We had the prices went up, but um, really you weren't making money on those sorts of deals because you guys have got to put so much effort into the, the vetting of the site. So that's actually a good jumping point. Thinking back, to those times, you started with Empire Flippers back in 2017. So you've been there for a long time now. What have you seen changed in the marketplace? Because it's been a fascinating, those 8 years are probably one of the most fascinating periods in the space of buying and selling online businesses.
Yeah, so it's for me, it breaks down into kind of like 3 or 4 really clear chunks, which was when I first joined, we were growing really nicely. We were kind of a small team, 20 people, and most of us in Asia. And we were, the valuations were generally good, the economy was generally good, things were kind of growing nicely. Then you get into like the COVID era, 2020 to 2022, and things for our business just went like completely insane. The economy was obviously very good, but then you had some industry specific things, like particularly the Amazon FBA aggregators. Like we were just perfectly positioned for that. We had a lot of those FBA businesses. We couldn't put them up quick enough. The kind of like the wire race concept on the smaller sites, it wasn't that much different to that with like 7-figure FBA businesses during that period. And then after that, like towards the end of 22 into 23, like we had a real tough period in the market, to be honest, and particularly 2023 because obviously the market had changed, interest rates, inflation, all that kind of thing. But I think what made that year particularly tough was sellers were still like married to their earlier valuations. Buyers had moved on, but sellers hadn't.
Yep.
So we would go in, we would still get plenty of deals under due diligence, but things would come up, small things in due diligence that like a year prior, one side or the other would have been like, oh, okay, no worries. But now like buyers were coming into DD feeling like they were at their maximum, sellers are at their minimum. And so the smallest thing would just kind of like tank a deal. And then, since then, both the market and us as a company have been kind of like building back a bit over that. And things are pretty good at the moment.
Okay, so it's settled back down. So in terms of these valuations, so you guys have seen the roller coaster, or all of us have, and we've watched valuations of websites just go through the roof since Liz and I started in 2008, I think, before any of the brokers even existed. We bought our first
Mm.
website on eBay. So, which is,
Amazing.
and we said to the seller, mate, why are you selling this on eBay? And he goes, why are you buying on eBay? Same reason.
Yeah.
Where else do we sell these websites? And then you guys started, all the brokers started appearing. But seeing those high valuations, what were the valuations? Like when you guys talk in terms of monthly valuations, what were the valuations that we were seeing in COVID where it was just literally these deals were going out the door.
Yeah, I mean it varies a lot, particularly on size. But I guess if we talk about like the largest deals on our marketplace, because that's where kind of like the uptick was during the aggregator period. Your average multiple before that on those business was probably like somewhere around 3 times the annual net profit, right? 36 times monthly.
Yeah.
For sure during that COVID period, we had comparable businesses selling in the like 5, sometimes 6 times.
Whoa.
So yeah, pretty much double. Valuation is interesting now. I mean, it's definitely down from then.
Yep.
But it's difficult to pass the data because the average online business during COVID was like performing so well that like average performance is down a bit as well. So yeah, and when we do get the ones that are still showing good year-on-year growth, they actually kind of stand out more now, if anything. So yeah, it's down, but you can still get some strong valuations if the business is performing well.
So what are the valuations like? I know, okay, how long is a piece of string? There's lots of different
Yeah.
styles of businesses, but let's say on, I don't know, in the kind of around the mill level, are valuations still at a healthy level?
Yeah, I mean, they're roughly comparable to pre the craziness. If you looked at like
Okay.
today's valuations and compared them to like 2018, 2019, they're kind of roughly comparable. Yeah, the one thing I would say that has maybe changed in the last couple of years is we probably do see more creative deal structures than previously.
Interesting.
Again, through that peak period, even on the larger deals, it was like very, very common for them to be like all cash sometimes.
Yep.
And I say that like, some portion of seller should expect some portion of seller financing, particularly on the larger deals, and could be tied to performance. Like we're seeing a bit more of that now.
Okay, so there's definitely, yeah, you're noticing more because in America, of course, seller finance is huge in traditional business sales. You're seeing a lot more of that now coming into the online space.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's always been there to some degree on particularly on the larger stuff. I think it's kind of like a function of supply and demand, I think, really, which was, even on the big deals in the kind of like the peak period, there was so many people going after them that it kind of forced a situation where someone was paying
So,
cash. Now that like demand is at least a little lower than from the crazy highs, I think buyers get a little bit more creative there.
and and for our listeners who are looking at buying, saying that $100,000 to $300,000 range, is it pretty easy to, if they've never done it before, is it pretty easy if they work with you guys to structure seller finance?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team of our buy side guys that work specifically with buyers in that region, that kind of 100K to 300K, and they'll be like, they do deals like that all day, every day. So they'll be very happy to try and kind of help buyers come up with a structure that works for them. They're obviously talking to those specific sellers a lot as well, so they know which sellers may or may not be more open to those kind of arrangements. So yeah, we help buyers work through that stuff all the time.
And as brokers, you guys are comfortable with people doing extended seller finance. So if you don't know what seller finance is, basically you don't have to pay cash up front. You can put down like 50% and then maybe pay 10 or 20 grand a month, or it might be based on profitability or milestones, or it can be just as simple as, yeah, $10,000 a month for the next 12 months. Are you guys comfortable with structure as brokers? Because I know some brokers aren't, but where are you guys at? Like with online businesses, yeah, here in Australia, as traditional brokers, because I used to be a traditional broker, we were not fans of seller finance. But I'm interested
Mm.
in your space with online and Empire Flippers, it because there is more of a demand for it. Is that an easy thing to set up over an extended period?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, we view our job as to get as much cash up front for the seller as possible.
Good.
So we like the cash up front deals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, where there is like an earn out or a finance portion in place, typically we will stay very involved through that earn out process. And normally, particularly on kind of like content sites, normally we will hold the domain during that as well. So we'll kind of like act as an escrow for the domain, and then we'll release the domain to the buyer once the seller is paid, basically.
So for all our sellers out there, Empire Flippers are awesome at this. So we've had quite a number of clients over the years love selling their websites through Empire Flippers. And our feedback is that from our clients is that your teams have done an awesome job there. Like it's gone really well. Even in Andy, there was, I've seen extended finance deals on Empire Flippers, and it's gone perfectly because of exactly what you said. If you're new to this, what Empire Flippers do is they act as a bit of an intermediary. So they will hold the domain name, and once all parties are happy, then the final dollar amounts transfer, then the domain name transfer. So both parties are fully protected. And also in your due diligence period too, and I noticed, looking around your website, if someone finds something they're not happy with in a due diligence period, it's pretty easy for them to back out with you guys. Should I not be saying that? Sorry.
No. So it's
It's
super straightforward. So yeah, I mean, typically a deal goes under letter of intent, and then that buyer gets exclusive due diligence, and that's non-binding, right? So
yeah.
if either party finds something that kind of they didn't know going into it, then absolutely they can pull out of the deal. The one thing that we always just try to measure through that is like making sure that people have good intentions, right? So like if a buyer takes a deal into exclusive due diligence with a certain offer and they don't really find anything untoward, but they try to like renegotiate the offer or kind of like, once they have the seller down the path, then like we're pretty strict on that. And we probably wouldn't let that buyer take other deals under letter of intent. But we understand that like the point of the process is things are going to come up. And if everybody is acting in good faith, then yeah, for sure. Sometimes either side decides to pull out of the deal for one reason or another or renegotiate or whatever.
And for our sellers, you guys obviously vet the buyers too. You make sure they've got the cash in the bank before they enter into any of these kind of exclusivities and even before the deal proceeds.
Yeah, totally. So even to kind of unlock the confidential information on a listing, buyers have to verify their ID and they have to verify their liquidity as well. And then we have a team who, as soon as anybody is looking at deals on our marketplace, certainly well before they are putting things under letter of intent, like our team will be talking to them, will be like understanding their situations and kind of making sure that they're a good fit to be doing that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so for seeing these, I guess, it's not really a roller coaster of valuations. It's just valuations. I like what you said. It's just come back to normalcy, like pre-COVID days. If you're new to this
Mm.
game, during COVID, valuations just went nuts, and you literally had to pay cash for everything. Now, thankfully, everything's back to normal. Um, are you seeing any impacts of the economy out there? So we're now in roughly mid 2025. Are you seeing any impact from the economy? There's a lot of talk. There's things tightening up in certain industries. Are you seeing any of that starting to flow through yet?
I think like the thing that the last few years has taught me is that, obviously it's easy to get deals done when times are good, right? It deals still get done when times are bad. The bit is like the in-between periods, right? And like so we've just seen this with kind of like the tariff stuff, right? Which
Yeah.
touch wood, hopefully seems to be sorting itself out. But it was less about the decision. The worst bit was that like everybody was expecting something to get unwound or changed in a few weeks, and so it just puts everyone in a holding pattern. So yeah, I think like that's kind of my take at the moment. Is I don't mind I like good times, bad times will do. It's like the uncertain in between periods that are painful.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comment. And well, how long is it taking to sell these? So you're in that 100,000 to a couple of mil range. What does it typically take to sell a business like that? An online business?
Yeah. Yeah, so again, obviously varies a lot, but when we list a business, we ask for 2 months of exclusivity. Our
Okay.
average time to sell is probably slightly longer than that. It's probably more like 3 months across all sizes. But by the end of 2 months, we're going to have kind of like a really good idea of whether we're going to get it sold or not. And then in terms of like your average exclusive due diligence period
Mm.
is probably somewhere in the like 30 to 60 day range on average, something like that.
Okay.
Again, we would expect on smaller deals for that to be towards the low end of that, sometimes shorter, like some buyers only need 2 weeks or something. And then the bigger deals where there's like more third parties involved and different services, then can take a little longer.
And so, Andy, for our potential sellers in our community. So we've got a lot of people that buy and sell websites, but also are building really cool websites, and they might want to sell, down the track. So they need to be thinking this through. Several questions around that. One is, who are the buyers? Who should we be thinking about? What are these buyers in those? And I know there's different price ranges, but can you just talk us through who the main buyer?
Yeah, of course. So, on the kind of, let's say, 1 to 3, 4, 500K range, something like that, still we have plenty of individual buyers at that level, high net worth individuals who maybe just want something alongside their 9 to 5, or want to quit their 9 to 5 and do something different. And then as you get up in the price range is where you start to, once you get above the kind of $1 to 3 million, where you get some of the more like professional institutional money, whether it's like small private equity firms, or, while the aggregators aren't around as much these days, there are still companies that will roll up a few businesses, and make like a small portfolio. So we have those kind of buyers as well.
Okay. And when it comes to those bigger buyers, like in the seven-figure deals, do your guys tend to know the buyers already, or do they is it pretty well networked?
Well, so yes and no. So we have a lot of those big buyers in our network already. They'll be like looking at our marketplace and, looking for listings that fit their criteria. But one thing we do much better these days, because we have to, is like when we have those, particularly those seven-figure businesses, we also do a lot of proactive outreach as well. Whether that's kind of like, campaigns specifically targeting like who would be good strategics for the listings that we list, or more general kind of like institutional M&A platforms that we might post listings on. So yeah, we have sort of like a set base, but we will go out and specifically hunt based on the deal as well.
Okay. And what are some of I guess, the top three classic things that these buyers value the most? Or, well, what are you seeing actually? Actually, what are you seeing that are still generating those high multiples? You know how you said it kind of varies a bit depending on the business, but what are
Yeah.
there any specific traits that you see that kind of, let's not use the word guarantee, but can help get maximum multiples?
Yeah, I think, well, the big one is particularly now it helps if the business is growing, right? If the business is
Okay.
showing strong year-on-year growth, then like that's a big tick in the box.
Yep.
I think particularly a business that runs without the seller is super important.
Ooh, okay.
So like
Write
a
that down.
team in place, documented processes, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, and I think probably now more than ever, like some form of diversity in traffic, and particularly if that's like owned media as well. So if you have like a good email list, which you're using to some degree, or some social following or stuff like that, I think that, that kind of just de-risks it for buyers a bit.
And that's one of the big things we're telling our guys now is just get that diversity of traffic and, your
Mm,
social, particularly email lists. I mean, email lists have always been
yeah,
gold, haven't they? That's kind of
yeah.
but even I think that's even more important, particularly with AI. Are you seeing AI impact in any major ways, or is there like, or is it? I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking at traffic and profit, but what any comments around the AI game at this point?
Um, Yeah, I think, I don't know. There was, when it came to like these assets, there was a lot of talk about it 12 months ago, and like how it may or may not impact things. I don't know. I don't know how much we're seeing it show up in the day-to-day of buying and selling at the moment. Other than, other than enabling people to kind of like leverage AI to build these businesses even more efficiently, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not seeing it as kind of like a big blocker or anything at the moment. We see a reasonable amount of our Empire Flippers traffic coming through kind of chat GPT stuff and now, which is cool.
Oh, okay.
So we track that pretty closely. And from what I see, and I'm not an SEO kind of expert, but like from a lot of the people I follow in that space, it seems like a lot of the kind of like is SEO dead talk. It seems like a lot of people are just like, no, you still need to be doing SEO, but like you need the fundamentals to make sure you show up in the LLMs now rather than just Google, right?
Yeah. And that's something. we're teaching here too. It's funny, isn't it? The fundamentals. There was we constantly find ourselves saying, Andy, now everything old is new again. The fundamentals now. And I just ran a class on press releases. How awesome is that for training the AI bots now? Like, that's an old SEO
Mm.
thing, and now that stuff like that is really important. So it's always about the fundamentals. That's really good. So diversity in traffic is a big one, and that year-on-year growth. So that definitely, I'm presuming that really stands out in this marketplace. So as opposed to a business that's going like that, it's going down in traffic. Um, and what you guys specialize in e-commerce, but have you seen any, like in say display advertising or content sites? This is our passion, and info sites. Is there still a strong demand for those sorts of sites?
So there is, I think, like you just said there, they have to have something like info products or something about their traffic acquisition, which is maybe from email or something like that. I think what we really don't see a lot of these days is your like typical, best such and such keywords in Google,
Yep.
sent to an affiliate page. Like, I mean, Google pretty much crushed those in mid 2023. So we don't see so much of those, but we still see plenty of interesting, like you say, either info product sites, or like display ads, is still kind of, as long as the site has something to it, like display ads, we still see plenty of those. So yeah, it's a slightly smaller part of our market than it was a few years ago, but that we still sell content sites in some shape.
Okay. And you were telling me we've got to share this story, the one that you were telling me before the podcast. Can you share it? That one that you're selling for 3 mil. So
Yeah, well, it's for sale on our marketplace right now. It's a daily news site in the science space, which is super interesting. I think it has like a bunch of newsletters that go out as well. I think the most interesting thing about it, it's a pretty much 100% display ads. I think mostly Mediavine. And the one thing it has that kind of is unique is it's a super old domain. It's like a 20 odd year domain, which has been, not just like an expired domain, but which has been being used for this for the last 20 years. I think right now it makes like about 60K a month in profit, something like that.
Isn't it cool? Like it's a daily science news site. Like it's just you know, 20 years ago, we all would have laughed at that, going, huh, as if that's going to make much money. It's making the owner,
Mm,
so then they're like making 60 grand a month, and that
mm.
asset's worth, 3 mil. They've probably, I'm presuming they've got that set up and systemized now, and it probably just pumps out, with AI, that would be really cool. I would imagine for a
Yeah.
newsletter.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that. I do know on it that we did a bunch of outreach kind of specific to that listing, to companies that would make a good strategic acquisition there, and it got a lot of interest.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it really resonated well. It was a real good advert for our cold outreach actually.
Oh, cool. So that sort of asset is, yeah, when that's what you guys can do as when you're assisting these sellers sell these unique assets like that. You can do very specific outreach and get industry, well, within that niche strategic buyers.
Yeah, and if you can, the classic strategic acquisition thing, if you can find a buyer where like they can take the one, add it to their one, and it makes three instead of two,
Yep.
that's when you get like the top dollar valuations for sellers as well.
That's the game here. And Andy, what's one of the cool things that you've implemented here? So you've done a lot since you've been CEO. You've got this thing really focused, and there's been some, like you said, there was some challenging times in 23, but big congratulations on where you guys are up to now. It sounds like things are humming along, and it'll be interesting to see, what happens with the economy. But within Empire Flippers, what's some of is there anything new there that you've implemented in particular, or anything that you can let us know about?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the one thing which was around before I took over, but we've really pushed in the last couple of years is our referral program.
Mhm.
So we pay buyers and sellers. If somebody refers them to us and they either sell a deal or they buy a deal through us, we'll pay 20% of our fee. Actually 30% on SaaS at the moment to the person that referred them. And an example of that, a few months ago, we had one particular deal. It had a buyer referral and a seller referral, and we paid them each just under $80,000, which was a pretty cool one. And the seller referral partner, I think like the guy makes YouTube videos about making money online, and someone just clicked his link in the video, and that click earned him $80,000. It's not too bad, huh?
Okay, so I'm going to get an affiliate link and put it below
Yeah,
this video. If you're thinking of buying or selling a website, please use my affiliate link. That'll be cool. We'll
absolutely.
donate the money to charity, our favorite charity. We always do that on our affiliate links, but that's just a cool thing to do. Yeah, so referral links is that's a something where if you're interested and you've got maybe followers or you're talking to someone and you know they want to sell their online business, why don't you flick them across to Empire Flippers on the referral link? That's really cool. So Andy, any other final tips for people who are, so we typically train often total beginners in this space who are quitting normally typically highly paid jobs. Any final tips from your end that can help a total beginner get into this
Uh,
space?
Yeah, I think like on the buying side, the one thing I would say is that, even if you are right at the beginning of your journey and yeah, taking the first steps, like still I would schedule a call with one of our team and just like,
Awesome.
speak to them about what it is you're thinking of doing. We're
Yep.
very, very happy to talk to people at like, whatever stage they're at. And we have, guys in our buy and our sell side who have like seen hundreds of businesses, spoke to hundreds of buyers, and will be very happy to give you kind of 15 minutes of their time and some advice. So yeah, just go to our site and book a call is what I would say.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Andy. That's just unreal. And Andy, what I'll do is we'll put a link, obviously, to Empire Flippers in the show notes as well, and people can reach out to you directly if they want. Are you on LinkedIn as well? How do you want to be contacted if someone needs a quick?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good place to get me actually. I post
Okay.
quite a lot there and pretty active.
Yep, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming along today, Andy, and giving us an update on where Empire Flip is at, and also those inside tips for both buyers and sellers of online businesses. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Enjoyed it.